There you go. We're all set.
Thank you. Perfect. So good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Krauser, and on behalf of Greyhound Options, I welcome you to today's Learn and Greet. This event is kicking off our 30 for 30 initiative. So Greyhound Options is going to be celebrating a 30th anniversary as a Greyhound adoption group in December of 2025. So we set a goal of finding 30 new foster families by our anniversary. So that's the 30 for 30. To that end, tonight's Learn and Greet is intended to let everybody know what being a foster for GO is all about. So first, I do have a couple of housekeeping events. We'd ask everybody to keep your audio and video turned off during the presentations. As you just heard, we are recording the event, and we'll send the link of the recording to everybody who's registered, and we'll also post it on our website. If for some reason you decide that this isn't a good time for you to be a foster family, please know that we understand and still greatly appreciate the support that we get for our mission and our other activities. People are always welcome to donate to Greyhound Options, and we make it easy, and you can do that right on our website. So with that, Sarah, can I have the next slide, please? All right. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to quickly go over the format for tonight's presentation. So we are going to have 4 presenters, and each is going to talk about a specific topic on our agenda. So we're going to talk about Greyhound Options, questions that people might have before fostering. We'll talk about what happens when your foster arrives and when your foster goes on an adoption visit. So we are going to take questions that have been typed into the chat at the end of each topic. So feel free to put questions in the chat about the topic that we're discussing. Okay, know that we're also going to have time at the end of all the presentations for additional Q&A. At that point, you'll be asked if you'd like to turn on your video, and you can unmute yourself and actually ask your questions. We're also going to have some foster families with us, and they're happy to share some of their experiences again at the end of the presentation. So at this point, I'm pleased to introduce the 4 presenters for this evening. First, we have Claire Siegel, who is currently the president of Greyhound Options. She'll be followed by Matt Lyons, who is, Matt oversees all the activities from the eastern part of the state. And we have Sandy Rancourt, who is our Berkshire's representative. And we'll also hear from Anna Skillings, who's one of our wonderful Greyhound foster families. So I'll say that together we were talking that these folks have about 75 years of Greyhound experience. So that's an awful lot of Greyhound knowledge and expertise. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Claire, who's going to begin by talking about Greyhound Options.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to have all of you here with us today to learn a little bit about Greyhound Options and our fostering program. We see by the list of participants that some of you have been with GO for many years and some of you are new. So I'd like to share a little bit about how GEO got started and why fostering is such an important part of our organization. My husband, Cliff Kerr, and I adopted our first greyhound, whom we named Taxi, in 1993 from a woman in Palmer, Mass, whose husband owned and raced greyhounds at the Hinsdale Greyhound Park in Hinsdale, New Hampshire. Cliff worked in the classified department of Turley Publications, and Connie would come in often and place an Adopt a Greyhound ad in the weekly newspapers when her husband's dogs were finished with their racing career. After talking with her about greyhounds and learning that many greyhounds were being destroyed at that time, when the seasonal tracks in New England would close, we decided to adopt one of Connie's dogs to be a companion to our beagle named Willie. We went to Connie's house where we met the greyhound she picked out for us, and we saw this skinny, shivering, wet, brindle male greyhound that she had picked out. This is the dog for us. She had just given him a bath, and wow. But we took Taxi home, not knowing the first thing about greyhounds, and he was the best dog that either of us had ever had. We began volunteering with a local adoption group in Western Mass that had a unique way of operating. When the head of the group would get 5 or 6 applications, she would have the man from the adoption kennel at the Hinsdale track bring down 5 or 6 dogs to her home in Longmeadow, where the applicants would come, meet the dogs, and take home the one they wanted. There were no home visits made. No vetting was done, including spay or neuters. No cat testing. Just give a $75 check, sign the papers, and off you go with the dog. Needless to say, this resulted in about a 33% return rate for a myriad of reasons. He ate my cat. He bit my toddler. Didn't come back when I let her off the leash. It was only when the dogs were returned that they went into a foster home. Cliff and I joined with a small group of volunteers who felt the same way we did, that there must be a better way to place these dogs. We visited some other groups who operated a kennel and some who worked strictly with foster homes. We tried to talk to the head of the group about implementing some changes, most importantly, the vetting of the dogs, but she was not interested in changing. And so in December of 1995, we broke away from that group and started Greyhound Options. Cliff served as president of GEO from its inception until last year when he turned the reins over to me. A group of us decided to go with a foster program instead of a kennel for many reasons, chief of which was to help the dogs that we took in transition from track life to home life before adoption, and to learn more about their temperament in order to make a good match with the families who would adopt them. We also arranged for spay and neutering, up-to-date vaccinations. The program has stayed pretty much the same since then for the past 30 years, although the landscape has changed. In the beginning, we got our dogs almost exclusively from Hinsdale in New Hampshire, mainly due to the wonderful man who ran the adoption kennel there at the park. Then in the early 2000s, the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture put restrictions on being able to bring out-of-state dogs in. So we took dogs from the 2 tracks that were operating in Massachusetts, Wonderland Greyhound Park in Revere and the Raynham-Taunton track in Raynham. When greyhound racing was banned in Massachusetts in 2008, we took in as many dogs from those tracks as we could. Then we began a good working relationship with Maine Greyhound Placement in Augusta, Maine. And when the tracks closed down in Florida in 2018, we worked with Pups Without Partners in Connecticut to take in the Florida dogs. We could bring those dogs in from out of state then, but we had to abide by a new 48-hour isolation requirement that was implemented by the Department of Agriculture for all out-of-state dogs. So in 2014, a group of GEO volunteers constructed an approved isolation room here in our garage in Ware, Mass, where the dogs could stay comfortably for the required 48 hours to make sure they did not have any infectious diseases. The room needed to have impermeable walls, an exhaust system, hot and cold water, and no contact with any other animals. We have a good-sized turnout pen and AC and heat when needed to make the dogs as comfortable as possible. The dogs are turned out 5 times a day, and a licensed veterinarian comes to check on them at the end of the 48 hours. We cat test them, and then they go off to their foster homes. Today, the dogs are coming mainly from Ireland and New Zealand. Of course, GEO could not exist without the hard work and the dedication of our foster families. We can only take in as many dogs as we have foster homes. We are hoping that with our 30 for 30 initiative, we can begin to rotate among several foster homes to avoid the all too real burnout. Throughout the years, we have been blessed with families who have gone above and beyond for the dogs they have fostered. For many years, we were known as the group who would take in the broken-legged dogs from the tracks, go have the surgeries done, and our foster families would see them through the recovery period. In addition to nursing physical injuries, GEO's foster families have always been willing to work with behavioral problems as well. In the 30 years, we have never euthanized a dog because of behavioral issue. We are proud to work alongside our foster families, and we hope to continue for many years to come. Before I turn the stage over to Matt, who heads up our Eastern Mass Division, and who, with his wife Christy, joined GEO in 2010, Sarah, are there any questions in the chat room about the beginnings of GEO?
We don't have any questions yet, Claire.
Oh, well, I guess I did a pretty good job then.
Sure did.
Now, let's go to the next slide and hear from Matt about some questions you might have before agreeing to foster.
Thank you, Claire, and thanks to everyone who's attending this morning greet. My name is Matt Lyons, and in addition to being the GEO treasurer, Christy and I are long-term fosters for Greyhound Options. I'm going to run through and address the questions on this slide. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we can address them later. So first, can I foster if I have children, cats, other dogs, or work outside the home? And the answer is yes. We have all different types of foster families. Some families do have cats, children, and other dogs, and some don't have any of those. All play a vital role because if a foster dog does well in those different environments, it's a good bet they'll do well in similar adoptive homes. But we do like to make a home visit to prospective fosters and adopters for that matter to make sure that everyone in the household is on board with getting a foster dog. How much space and what supplies do I need? As I got a Greyhound right next to me. Greyhounds require much less space than you might expect, which is not much space at all. A quiet spot to relax on a comfy dog bed, maybe 3 by 4 feet, suits them just fine. All of our fosters will come to you with a martingale collar and a lead, a muzzle, and a folder containing their medical records and heartworm preventative. We also have crates, food bowls, light fleeces, and winter coats if needed. And we'll send the foster along with a 30-pound bag of ProPlan Complete Essentials kibble. And if you need more, we can have a bag sent directly to you from Chewy. Next, are the dogs cat tested? Yes, every dog that comes into our group is cat tested with a live cat before they leave our isolation room. The dog has a muzzle on and is brought in on leash slowly to the cat to see its reaction. Sniffing and healthy curiosity is okay, but if there's any lunging, barking, snapping, we deem that cat not workable and will not place it in a foster home that have cats. This is only a preliminary test to hopefully weed out the high prey drive dogs. The real test is when the dog goes into a foster home and interacts with the resident cat. We always encourage our foster homes to use the muzzle. It's a great tool for many uses until they're confident that their dog and cat can get along safely and peacefully. Do I need a fenced-in yard? No. To be quick, and the majority of our adopters and a lot of our fosters don't have fenced-in yards. Foster families without a fenced-in area must commit to walking their foster on leash several times a day, not unlike any other dog, for exercise and bathroom purposes. Greyhounds should not be let off leash unless they're in a completely fenced-in area. Occasionally, some of our dogs might refuse to do number 1 or number 2 on the leash. And in that case, in the case that they don't get the hang of that, we could also find another foster home that has a yard. But in most cases, the dogs will be able to eventually learn how to do all their business on a leash. How long is the commitment? The minimum fostering time frame is 2 weeks. We call this the honeymoon period, and it allows the foster dog to relax after their journey from Ireland or New Zealand, and it allows fosters and their families to get to know their foster pup. We'll learn how they do with cats, other dogs, and get them accustomed to a regular schedule. We ask that fosters help write up a short bio and send us pictures over those first 2 weeks. After the first 2 weeks, the dogs are then available for adoption and are put up on our website, Adopt-A-Pet, and Pet Finder. If there's a waiting list of adopters, the dogs may go on their adoption visits quickly. If not, the foster period may go on for a month or more. If you're planning on going on an extended vacation, we can always line up local coverage for your foster if necessary. Are the dogs house trained? Almost all the dogs that come into our group are used to kennel life and used to doing their business outside. It's best to follow your foster around the house when they first arrive, just to keep them from marking and keep them from going other places inside. They should be let out regularly in order to get them onto a good schedule to do their business outside. Do I have to use a crate? Yes. The crate is a tool like the muzzle and plays an important role in the transition period. We ask if foster families use the crate when they're not home so that dogs do not have an accident in the house when you're not there to correct them or do any destructive chewing. In many cases, the crate actually helps reduce anxiety, as too much space can be distressing to the dogs. So it's perfectly fine to have your dog crated while your resident dogs, if you have them, are uncrated. Foster dogs usually do their best sleeping in the same room with a human, whether in a crate or on a dog bed nearby. At our house in particular, the fosters are crated on the first floor while our other greyhounds, while we sleep upstairs with our 2 cats. What if my foster dog needs medical care? GEO assumes all medical care costs for foster dogs. Foster dogs can contact Claire or me if your foster dog needs care. In addition, we provide Simparico Trio for all our fosters. This takes care of hookworm, heartworm, fleas, and ticks. So before I turn it over to Cindy Rancourt, who heads up our Way Western division in Western Mass and Berkshires with her husband, Mark, are there any questions before fostering?
All right, Matt, we have one question about, can I keep my foster, which I believe will be covered in the next few slides. So let's make sure we address that. But there's also a question regarding food and wondering, can I feed them food other than what you provide? Such as other types of kibble or home cooked.
That is a great question. There are definitely certain foods that you're not allowed to feed dogs, such as grapes, onions, cooked bones. But initially, we'll send you with a bag of dog food. If you would prefer to feed another type of kibble, usually with any foster dog or dog, there's usually a transition period where you would mix over the kibble. But we could definitely talk to you individually about any preferences you might have.
Thank you, Matt. That is it for questions. Oh wait, another one just came in. Is it recommended that the foster wear a muzzle when you take them out for a walk?
Well, as I said before, the muzzle is a great tool. The foster dog doesn't necessarily have to wear a muzzle while you're walking the entire time, but it's good to have a muzzle with you. If you come upon, a dog that, a lot of these greyhounds haven't seen, some of these greyhounds haven't seen non-greyhounds. So depending on their reaction, you can have the muzzle with you. You can put the muzzle on them when they're meeting new dogs or of all different sizes. So it's not a requirement to have it on at all times.
Thank you, Matt. Another question. Is it okay that my other dogs are not in the crate when we aren't home?
Yes. Yeah, we just recommend creating your foster at our house. We've got 4 greyhounds. Usually the foster is crated and our other dogs aren't crated. Though that being said, we have an open crate that a dog will go into next to the foster. So that seems to work well at our house.
That seems to be it for now.
Thank you very much. I'll hand it over to Cindy.
Hello, and thank you for coming in tonight for our learn and greet. When your foster arrives, the first question is, how do I get my foster? You can get your foster in a number of ways. First of all, if you are a first-time foster family, we prefer to drop the dog off to you. Someone will bring the dog to you to make sure that there is appropriate introductions. But foster families are also welcome to pick up their dog in wear on the isolation release day, or we can have other arrangements be made. Will someone help me with introductions to my cat, resident dogs, and or children? And the answer is absolutely. We deliver the foster dog to, as I said, to the first-time foster folks and families to make sure the proper introductions are made. What I like to do is to encourage the folks to meet the dog outside with the resident dog that they have. So they're on neutral territory, to meet the kids outside, and to even go for a pack walk with the other dogs and with the children. It kind of helps get all the wiggles out of all of the animals and calm the children down a little bit before we bring the dog inside the house. Can I change their names? We encourage people not to change the foster dog's name because oftentimes the new adopters will want to rename their dog, and it would just be 2 changes for the dog in a short period of time. Why do I need to use the crate? Well, I think Matt touched on that a little bit. You need to use the crate because the dogs will not soil in their crates where they sleep or where they eat. So what I encourage people to do is that the moment you take your dog out of the crate, there's no playing, there's no there's no playing with the dogs, allowing them to roam the house. Immediately you bring the dog outside when they first come out of the crate, let them do their business, then you praise them and bring them back inside. You need to use the crate to keep your possessions safe when you are out of the house, just so that there is no chewing or no soiling when they are out of the crate and you are not there. And also when they are sleeping, there is something called sleep startle. Not all greyhounds have sleep startle, but if you do have a dog that has sleep startle or sleep aggression, if someone goes near or another animal goes near the dog that is sleeping, your foster dog that is sleeping and is awakened, they may not realize where they are immediately and may snap. And so this prevents that from happening, and you will get a feel for if there is a sleep startle in your dog during the foster period of time that you have them. Let's see, why can't my foster go on the furniture like my resident dog? Well, sleep startle is one of the reasons. And also the decision to keep them off of the furniture is because we do not know if the adoptive folks will allow them on the furniture. And if you allow your foster dog on the furniture, they go to a home that doesn't allow it, it would be a hard habit to break. So you just tell the dog no, and then you gently pull on their collar to get them off of the crate. Get them off of the furniture. And then when you get them down, you can offer them a treat. Should I bathe my dog or take them for rides? Your dog will not need a bath unless it's rolling around in something in the backyard, perhaps, or sprayed by a skunk, God forbid. But you can take them for rides. Actually, we encourage that because one of the questions on our foster sheet information that the foster folks fill out is, does my dog go for a ride? And does your dog enjoy the rides? So to find out if they do, take them for rides and see how they react. How do I keep my foster dogs safe? You keep your foster dog safe by keeping them on a leash while they are outside or keeping them in a fenced-in area. Foster greyhounds are sight hounds. They are not scent hounds. So if they were to get loose, they will not find their way back. So keeping them on leash or in a fenced yard at all times is required. You can also use a harness, which will also help. What I tell people is that when they bring their dog for a walk, I like to show them how to actually wrap the leash around their wrist, so that if you are startled or the dog is startled during a walk and the leash cannot be dropped, and therefore the dog could not get away. Also, the greyhounds coming in, the foster greyhounds coming in don't know anything about home life. So if there is a window or a door, like a storm door that is top to bottom window, I recommend that you mark the windows with tape, masking tape, painter's tape, something like that, so that the dogs can see that there is something there and they don't look at it as a clear path to help them get outside. Also, if you do have a pool, we recommend that if it is an in-ground pool, that the foster dog cannot get around the pool for them to fall in by accident. What if it doesn't work out? Who do you contact? If it does not work out for your particular foster that you have, you can request another foster or, and who you would contact would be Matt or Claire. And their contact information will be put up at the end of the presentation. Sarah, do we have any questions now on when your foster arrives?
Let's see. Nope, no new ones have come in. Oh, just kidding. One just did. Someone is asking, I've heard that retired racing greyhounds have trouble negotiating stairs. Is that true? And if so, is it incumbent upon the foster family to teach the greyhound how to climb stairs?
That is a very good question, and one I neglected to address on how to keep your greyhound safe. Typically, the greyhounds do not know how to do stairs. You do have to be careful. I have put a gate up at the bottom of my stairs because it seems that going up is a lot easier than coming down for them. And if you do have stairs, I like to teach my greyhound how to do them. And there is something that you can talk about with your representative or the person who places the dog with you on how to do that. I have had a dog that has tried to jump down the flight of stairs. So it's very important that even when your foster dog does learn to do stairs, that you be very aware and guide the dog down by taking the dog by the collar and not just letting them run down the stairs or jump as one of mine did. Any other questions?
Give it a moment here, but so far it seems like that was the last question for this section.
Okay, and I am going to turn this over to Anna.
Hi, everybody. So we're going to talk about when your foster goes on an adoption visit. So that could be the end of the 2 weeks or longer, depending on how long it takes to make a match. So can I adopt my foster? So that was a question in the chat earlier. Since many foster families choose not to foster again after adopting their first foster, we ask that a brand new foster family foster at least one dog before adopting. This helps to keep the adoptions going. In any case, we ask families to let us know their wishes and to adopt the foster dog before the dog is offered to the prospective family. So just keep the communication open, I guess, is the best advice. Do potential adopters come to my home, and how do they meet my foster? So we do this in a variety of ways. Potential adopters can come to see you in your house if you are comfortable with that. If not, a placement rep can bring the foster to the potential adopter's home. Sometimes they meet at a meet and greet. It's whatever is comfortable for everyone concerned. We have a really good group of people that are very willing to come pick fosters up, meet halfway. I had one that I'm in South Plymouth and they lived in Maine, and we kind of set up like a travel chain to get them to Maine. So, you know, whatever works the best way. Again, communication is key. So, am I involved in the choosing of an adoptive family? Do I have any say in that? And we definitely take your thoughts into consideration, as you know the most about your foster dog since you've been living with them for at least 2 weeks. But the ultimate decision lies with the placement rep and the foster care coordinators. Can I keep in touch with the adoptive family? Yes, of course. If the adoptive family wants that to be a thing, which they're usually really happy. I've gotten a lot of photos and keep in touch, and I'm Facebook friends with a lot of my adoptive families. If the adoption does not work out, can the dog come back to me? And yes, we always ask the foster family if they'd like to have their foster dog back. If the adoption doesn't work out, obviously that foster dog is going to be more comfortable with you because everything is familiar. And when can I get another foster? So immediately, pretty much. Foster families are the lifeblood of GEO, and we're very grateful to all our wonderful and dedicated volunteers who give their time, energy, and love to our foster dogs. Like Claire said, we really can't do it without foster families. So, you know, the more that you volunteer, the better. But the more families we have, the more spread out it can be too. Does anybody have any questions in the chats? about when your dog goes on a trip?
Nothing new right now.
Okay. All right. I believe at this point we're gonna go ahead and open it up to any additional questions.
Yeah, and just want to first give people an opportunity to jot down Greyhound Options contact information. I think Christine, you were gonna post this in the chat for us. And then, after a minute, Sarah's gonna stop sharing her screen. And that will be an opportunity for all of us to turn on our videos and unmute ourselves. So we'll all be able to just have general conversation. And then our presenters are happy to, take any additional questions on other topics. I know I have a question that came to mind during the presentation, so we'll just give a minute. And then Sarah will stop sharing.
Sure. I'll just give it one more minute to make sure that folks can jot this information down. But in the meantime, perhaps someone could talk about lava floors. There's a question. Can you chat about lava floors?
Definitely
actually-
Matt can do that.
I'll start. Our first male, Hilo, who we got in 2007, was scared of floors at pet stores, linoleum floors. He even had trouble on just high quality wooden floors. And wouldn't you know it, our current male, Emmett, is pretty similar. So the easiest thing to do is either put a rug down. You can put some towels down, like if it's near a door where they come out from the yard. But some dogs just are a little bit more sensitive to where they're walking. It's not usually the case, but some dogs, are challenging in that regard.
Okay, I'm going to stop this share so we can all see one another. And another question came in. How high does the fence in a fenced-in yard need to be to contain a greyhound with certainty? Is a 4-foot high fence sufficient, or does it need to be higher?
I think most of us have a 4-foot fence. And that seems to be the standard for foster families and adoptive families. I don't think we would want to go any shorter than that. But that is the standard, 4 feet.
And before we go on, I'm just noticing that people haven't done their videos, and I just want to, make sure that it's not that people don't know how to do that, because we're certainly happy to help, but it would be, nice to be able to see each other, and will, generate additional conversation, I think, if people do want to turn on their videos and unmute themselves, and you're certainly welcome to continue to ask questions that way. And while everybody's doing that, just while we still have everybody here, this is probably a good time to thank everybody for joining us. We really sincerely appreciate your time and interest in our fostering program. And I, also want to thank the presenters who shared so much really great information with everybody. I do want to just remind people that following this additional Q&A, we do have some foster families here with us who have offered to share some of their stories and experiences. So, hopefully we'll be able to have you all hear from them as well. If anybody needs to log off, due to time, no worries. I would just say, don't be a stranger. Please do feel free to, continue conversation with us. Join us at our meet and greets held all throughout the state. And they are posted on our website, and usually see people talking about them on our Facebook pages. So with that, again, our presenters are happy to take any additional questions. And I have one I was hoping somebody might just address. If somebody's a foster family, what are their obligations in terms of trying to help get exposure for the dog? I know that we have lots of foster families take their fosters to our meet and greets. Is that a requirement? Or, how does that work? How do these dogs get good exposure? Anyone want to take that of our presenters?
Sure.
Uh,
I
go.
think anything that you can do to help your foster dog learn about home life is good. So taking them for rides, introducing them to your neighbors, um, anything that will help them to learn about the home life is the best thing for them. I can't think of anything that you shouldn't be doing. Anything you do with your resident dogs, try it with the foster. The more information that you can give us about your foster dog, the better match we will be able to make to with the applications that come in for us.
But would a foster family have an obligation to take their foster to a meet and greet every week, for example? Are there any requirements of that nature?
There's not a lot of real requirements. Like, in my piece, we talked about even transporting the dog from one family to the other. We have a good network of people that can help you with that. So you're not really obligated to ever drive the dog anywhere specific or do certain things. It's mostly like keep your dog safe, learn their personality. If you can do those things, that's even better. That's great. I try to, travel as much as I can, but sometimes you just can't. So there's plenty of people and volunteers that can help with that sort of thing. So there's not a lot of obligations in that regard. It's really just keep your dog safe, write up a really good summary of their personality so that there can be a good match. And then, everybody kind of as a, they say it takes a village. So the village kind of helps with the rest.
I would just add in one thing that people might do with their resident dogs, but can be a challenge with fosters, at least initially, is going to dog parks. One, you don't know really what all the other dogs are like there. And not to say that you couldn't bring a foster to a dog park, but that's where the muzzle would be useful. But at least initially, dog parks are something that you could walk by a dog park. That would be a good start. But they can be a challenge for a lot of reasons. So just something to be a little conservative with.
Just two thoughts. The first is that in the times that we have been actively fostering, it's been so helpful that Go has a really active messaging group. And it's not like someone's going to drop off this dog and then you're on your own. There's people at your fingertips 24 hours a day. If something's weird or funny or silly, or you have a question, there's such a supportive group of what was it, 75 years just within our 4 presenters of people who know. So it always feels like you have folks there to help. And I wanted to highlight a couple questions in the chat about one regarding separation anxiety. Do greyhounds ever experience separation anxiety when you first begin fostering them? Maybe we'll do that one, and then there's another one after that.
I will take that question. I've had many fosters, and I have had one in particular, my last foster, who had severe separation anxiety. And it was just a matter of her name was Lizzie. It was just a matter of her learning that she wasn't going to be alone for a long period of time, that we were always going to come back. And what I tell people when I do home visits is that to get your dog used to the fact that you will be away at times is to start slow. Say, I'm coming right back, go out the door, and then immediately come back and say, here I am, and make a big fuss. And then eventually increase that time to 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and then come back and let the dog know that you're there, and use the same terminology all the time. I'll be right back. Here I am, I'm back. And play with the dog at that time. So the dog realizes that he or she is not going to be alone. Using the crate is very important if you've got a dog with separation anxiety. The dog that I had, she was a challenge, but I have to say she was the hardest foster to give up. Not the hardest foster I ever had, but the hardest foster that I have ever had to give up, because she had come so far with her separation anxiety over the time period that I had her. So some dogs, I hope I'm answering the question. Some dogs do have separation anxiety, not all of them. But you do have to remember that typically these dogs are with many, many other greyhounds when they are at the track, and they will come into a home that is where they are either going to be an only dog as a foster dog or with just one, maybe two other dogs. So they're going from having a lot of canine company down to very little canine company, and it is an adjustment. I hope I answered that.
Yep.
I would also add that dogs can also have FOMO, fear of missing out. We've got, my wife will take a couple dogs out for a walk and the foster will be left with me. And they still are all upset that the dog's left without them, and they can be vocal. And I'm still a person and right here. So they can express themselves for many different reasons.
Mhm. Were there any other questions that came in, Sarah?
Another question, can someone explain the difference between what foster families do and what placement reps do?
Oh, that's a good question. The foster families, of course, are taking care of their foster dog when it comes until it gets adopted. But the placement reps are responsible for making the home visits when an application comes in. We make a home visit with every application unless they've already had a dog from GEO. So a placement rep, it depends on where they live. Application comes in, I like to give it to a person that's a placement rep that's living closest to that family. The placement rep will make an appointment, go and make the home visit, come back and tell us what they found, what kind of dog they think might be a good match. And then we take a look at the dogs we have available and see if we can make good matches. The placement rep also many times will bring the new dog to the home and make those introductions that Cindy talked about. And then they follow up. They're responsible for getting the adoption paper signed and following up with that family. So they are pretty much, sometimes a person will do both, but they are two separate roles in GEO.
Hey, Claire. Hi, it's Ron. If a placement rep brings a dog with them on a home visit, is it likely to be on that initial first time visit that they'll bring a dog, or is it a judgment call on a per case basis?
We encourage the placement reps to bring one of their own dogs on the home visit, because if they bring a foster dog and for some reason they see that this is not a good home for a greyhound or not a good home for the dog that they brought, it's very hard to say, oh, sorry, you can't have this dog. So in order to not have any bad feelings like that, if you bring your own dog on the home visit, there's no question that the family is going to want that dog because they know it's yours.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Jean Evans, she was showing us her dog, the red fawn dog. I think it's her foster that just came today, named Kinky. So maybe she'll be back.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sarah, you missed one right before that in the chat. the question. Before that one, there was, if the
Thank you.
recommended walking frequency is challenging, will a fenced-in yard suffice?
Can you
Yeah.
repeat that question, please?
If the recommended walking frequency is challenging, will a fenced-in yard suffice? So it sounds like if they, can't walk them multiple times a day, is a fenced-in yard okay?
I would just say that we sometimes have multiple fosters and dogs at our house. Our dogs don't get 4 walks a day. We have a fenced-in yard. My wife Christy is amazing in that she gets all the dogs out at least once a day for a walk because they do enjoy it. They enjoy checking the mail, if sniffing here and there, and as we said during this event, it helps us teach our fosters or learn about our fosters, work on their leash manners if they need it, but, expose them to traffic, other people, stuff like that along the way.
Definitely. I think I saw another question come in.
Yep, there were just 2 comments, somebody else voicing that the foster chat groups are really helpful. And then Anna recommends leaving a peanut butter Kong and leaving the radio on. I think that was related to strategies to support dogs who may be anxious with separation. I just
Yeah.
want to highlight those. And then the question is, can you give some examples of what might make a home not a good fit for a foster and what steps a prospective foster family can take to make sure their home is suitable for a dog?
What would not make a good home? From my perspective, one thing, if a family says to me, I want a dog that's going to, how can I put it? They want the dog to do something for them, either ease their loneliness or I want the dog so that my kids will have the responsibilities or something like. To me, the Greyhound has already done its job by being at the racetrack. To me, they don't need to do anything more than that, than to be a dog, to be a companion to them. So somebody that's putting a lot of jobs on a dog might not work out so great. People that work outside the home and then have a lot of activities after that, they're in a theater group, they're gone. That's tough on a dog. But might not be willing to have a dog walker come in. That's tough. We are very careful with families that have very small children. We don't have a hard and fast rule that people with children cannot adopt, but we are very, very careful and do it on a case-by-case basis. Because most of the dogs that we do get back, which is not very many at all, usually has to do with children.
Blair, me and Lisa have had an occasion on which we've had conversations with the potential adopter or potential foster that they verbally came out and said that they were going to off leash their Greyhound. That's another reason to nip that
Yeah.
right in the bud.
Definitely.
And then that one visit where the child was constantly whipping things, like we brought our dogs to the visit and these 2 little kids were just, jumping rope, like almost hitting our dogs in the face. I mean, they were just out of control. So obviously you said about the kids, you can't have, that's not a safe place. You're not going to put a dog into a place where the kids were clearly, just pulling at the dog's tail, and they were older kids too, old enough that, so that obviously would be a red flag that this might not be, a Greyhound might not be a good fit for your home.
Definitely.
Or any dog.
There's other recommendations we make about, these aren't like that this wouldn't be a good home, but sometimes on the home visit, we'll make a recommendation, like if they have a door that goes straight out to the front, we might say maybe you should put a baby gate there, or, so we make some like landscaping sort of recommendations sometimes when we do a home visit. So we'll say something like, this area maybe is, you could block that off, or like maybe you could put something here, or some things like that. Like you can kind of look at like how the layout of the house is, and it's not like that's a make or break thing, but we might have some recommendations there as far as just safety. Like they mentioned the stairs, to put a baby gate at the stairs, just things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just our house, for an example, we have a couple gates in our backyard. They have padlocks on them, so no one can open them without our permission. We have gates that separate our front hall if the door is open, but if you don't have an area that can be easily gated or controlled like that, you can just lock your front door, and then no one can open the door without you knowing, by surprise or anything like that. So there's some passive stuff that you can do to make sure a dog doesn't get out. But another thing is, if you are out in the yard, a fence in the yard, you can be out with your foster, at least initially, to be out them to watch, whether it's with wildlife, the fence, stuff like that, just to keep a little bit more attention on your foster.
I apologize, I can't get my video to work today, but as a placement rep and a foster home, I always walk the fence line if there is a fence. A fence is certainly not required, but if there is one, the complacency is easy to fall into, so that you may not realize that, that gap between two sections of your fence is big enough for a greyhound to get through.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's one of the things I always do, is I just go out and literally walk the entire thing, looking to see if there's an area that a dog might sneak under or be able to squeeze through.
I do that with my own fence at home periodically, to ensure that there are no broken panels, after a storm, or any newly dug, rabbit or squirrel holes that have gotten too big. It's good for those holes to be big enough for a squirrel to be able to escape from a greyhound, but not for a greyhound to be able to follow them to an adjacent yard, or God forbid, out onto the street.
Yeah, Ron, I was going to ask if you have any, experiences that you wanted to share about, your fostering.
Sure. Thanks. In my own personal experience, I've been fostering with greyhound options for 4.5 years now. I had a greyhound of my own for 10 years that passed at the ripe old age of 14 in just before COVID lockdown went into effect. And then a few months later, I had an opportunity to begin fostering, and it felt like the right thing to do at the time. I had sort of settled into a new routine of working from home full time, like a lot of us may have also done. And I think I wasn't necessarily looking for new companionship or an outlet for my grieving of having lost my greyhound Riley, a few months earlier. But that was a welcome and benevolent side effect that I had from sort of dipping my toe back into the greyhound world. And Matt and Christy were fantastic in getting me reacclimated and set up with all the supplies and food that I needed to start taking care of a foster again. And now I'm on my 9th foster in 4.5 years. I currently have Dolly from New Zealand, and she's a real sweetheart. And in those 4.5 years, I began in a condominium on a relatively loud and busy street corner in Somerville. And so I had to, I didn't have a fenced in yard. I had shared space with my neighbors. But I made it work, and I lived on the second story of a house also. So the fosters that I did have had no choice but to learn how to climb stairs. And like anything else, practice doesn't make perfect, but the repetition and the reward that goes along with learning to climb stairs, progresses fairly quickly. Like anything like any creature that needs to learn, any new skill, humans included, just the repetition and a lot of patience does its thing. And if you're a current or former Greyhound owner in attendance here tonight, I would say you probably know what I'm talking about. And I would say that if you're interested in fostering, you've already got the vast majority of experience and preparation under your belt. And the folks here will, get you the rest of the way towards being prepared and eager to start fostering. But now, halfway through, a couple of years ago, I was able to buy my own house with a fenced yard, with living accommodations. That's just a step across the threshold. No more stairs aren't required anymore for a dog. Actually, Dolly's only been upstairs at my place a couple of times. She knows how to do it, but she's still a little trepidatious. So we're taking our time with her to get her acclimated. But she'll get the hang of it, and she'll continue learning when she finds her forever home. And that's been my experience thus far. And I'm looking forward to the 10th and 11th and 12th and so on fosters.
Yay.
And I'm sure it's really bittersweet when your foster finds the home, right? I'm sure in some respects.
It can be. I mean, that's a kind of a personal response that'll be different for different people. In my experience, it's felt like a true calling that I found.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It must be so rewarding in many ways.
It is rewarding, and so, I miss a couple of them that I think about every day. But I know that they've gone to good homes, and that bolsters my, the feeling in my heart to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'd hope for the same for anyone else who gets involved, for sure.
If I could add to that, I often get that question, how can you foster? I would want to keep them all, is what I hear. And, as Ron is saying, you feel good about it when you are able to help a dog come from a situation and where they know nothing about home life and teach them about home life and be able to place them in a home that is a good home. And that's where I feel good about it, because I know the process of Greyhound options, and I know how the representatives are very, very thorough in explaining to the prospective adoptive families all about Greyhounds, and knowing that they're only going to be placed in the best homes, and feeling good about that, being able to let the dog go. But as Ron said, some of them are, he thinks about some of them more than others every day. And I said that my last foster was very hard to give up. I've had quite a few fosters that were hard to give up, but I know that they've all gone to good homes. So yeah, it is very rewarding.
I can mirror that as well. I've had 15 now. I'm on my 15th foster, and I have 2 dogs of my own and 2 cats. And I know if I adopted one, I couldn't keep fostering. I can't have 2 greyhounds and another dog and 2 cats. Like, that's too much for me. That's kind of like my limit. So I just look at it like I've saved 15 dogs. Whereas if I adopted one, I've saved 1 dog. So that makes me feel good, because I know I'm going to continue to do this and continue to find forever homes for all these dogs. Whereas if I kept them all, that would just be kind of like selfish and I wouldn't be helping anymore. You know what I mean? So I just kind of go in. I always tell people, because I get that question a lot. I tell people I go into it with the auntie mentality. You know, my sister has dogs. I babysit them. I don't want to keep them. You know, that's not my dog. So I just kind of go into it mentally. This isn't my dog. This is a dog that I'm helping, but it's not my dog. You know, and then, and that's just kind of where my mindset lies, and that's how I do it.
Definitely.
And in a more practical sense too, fostering gives me a great deal of flexibility in being able to take a break between fosters, do some traveling, tend to some home repairs or improvements, anything else that I want to do. If I just, you know, take a month to do something else, and that's again a very sort of a personal choice that may resonate with others and may not. But if it does, then I'll be glad to have shared the sentiment. You know, just having, you know, it's not to say that it's a fear of a long-term commitment, but it's a choice that that I'm grateful to be able to make.
Great. Thank you. Yep, just because we're getting to be around, you know, quitting time, I just want to make sure that anybody who has questions has an opportunity to get them answered. And if there's anybody else who does want to share a quick, you know, story about your foster experience, we're happy to hear that as well. Or otherwise, you know, again, we really appreciate everybody joining in tonight to learn about our, you know, foster program. And, you know, we certainly hope that there might be some interest on someone's part. I think there's something that's just coming in the chat.
Yes, it's a comment. The best argument you could make in favor of fostering are the beautiful greyhounds who have made a cameo appearance on tonight's call. I agree with that. I got one right here in my lap. She's not a foster, but that's why she's on the furniture.
Yeah.
I
Jean,
just got a cat.
Yeah.
Jean, is
Someone on my
Kinky
lap the
there?
whole time.
So,
Jean,
yeah. Go ahead,
Is
Elsa.
Kinky there?
Yes,
Oh,
Pinky is settling in really well. We just picked her up like 3 hours ago. And she's laying at David's feet right now. You can see there's a bed in the background, but she wants to be on the floor nearer us.
she's a sweetheart.
She really is, and she's got the fuzzy hair, so she's really soft. But she and
Right.
Helen are getting along real fine.
Oh, good. Good.
Great.
Great.
So again, just want to thank everybody who helped make this event possible this evening, the presenters and everybody that did some of the other things behind the scenes. And we do hope that some of you who attended will decide to give fostering a try. This is such a supportive group and you would never feel alone. And just a big thank you to our, you know, current foster families who really do such an amazing job and, you know, allow us to find permanent homes for the Greys that we all love.
Definitely.
So,
And thank you, Lisa.
yeah, yep. So with that, again, we're gonna sign off, and the link to the recording will be sent via email and posted on our webpage. It's been a long day. All righty. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.